Hello everyone, Happy Camper here. Over the holiday I decided that it was time to see if I could pick up a ukulele. So I bought a kit and I decided on the concert size. My son has a soprano kit and it's nice, but I thought the concert size might be kind of fun. So here's how it came. Came from Grizzly. I think it was like $56 total or something, which I thought was a pretty good deal. It was packed nice, all packed in peanuts there, and inside was another box that had the actual instrument in it. The kit came, all set up pretty nice, I think, and the instructions were very well done. The body of the instrument was pre-assembled, which makes it kind of nice. You don't have to build the system itself, I guess. The neck was pre-shaped, which was great, made it real simple. It was pre-fit to the body, and big savings too was the fretboard was pre-done, which makes it kind of nice for determining scale length. So I did a kind of a pre-inspection here because although the instrument looked like it was good and solid, I thought, it might be nice to kind of spiff this up. So one of the things I wanted to make sure of that there was enough material in the corners that I could put an edge binding on this and be able to use that for a little more decoration. So to start the edge binding, I had a block of rosewood, and I decided I would just cut a slab or two off on the table saw, and I just used a razor knife to cut them to the right width. So the thickness I did on the table saw, of course, and the width I just did with the knife. Made a little pile of these, and we're ready to go. Now, to get these to fit into the uke, of course, there's no channel there, so I had to make a little jig for my router. I set the router bit depth so that it was a little bit less than the width of the strips I made, and then I let it stick out just far enough that I could have a nice thickness of material there, but the strips I cut were still wide enough to do that. So then you just slide the instrument along the edge of the router bit and you get a nice little channel along there. Sometimes it takes 2 or 3 passes just because you come off of that little point and you need to get it to the right depth. So I did a quick test fit. Now to get these pieces to fit, you have to bend them to shape. So I do that on my little hot pipe there with my propane torch in. You adjust the heat so it works out pretty well. And then you just kind of slowly hold them on that pipe and a little force, and they bend right into place. Now you have to soak them in water, but just for a few minutes, I don't know, 10 or 15 minutes or something. That's my little cooler there. I drop them in. And there's the pieces after I had them all bent to fit. They don't have to be one continuous piece. You can hardly see the joints when they're done. So here I've got one edge of the system in place. I just used a cyanoacrylate with an accelerator. That's the little wet spots you see all over the place is the accelerator. And you bond them in place, hold them with your fingers, makes a big mess. You'll stick yourself to it. It's just great fun working with super glue. It's always a hoot. So I've got them all in position now. There's another shot after I did the other side. Again, wet from the accelerator that I used. The CA is pretty nice because it goes quite fast. You don't have to sit and hold and wait for a big mess. After that's done, now I use a cabinet scraper to clean those up. You can sand them, but you'll end up sanding through the plywood. So a cabinet scraper is certainly the right way to go about it. Now the sound hole rosette that came with the kit was actually a water slide decal. And I thought, I'm going to go through all this work. I want something a little fancier. The problem was the groove for a real wood rosette was not put in the instrument, so I had to make a little router jig to do that. I just cut a little round piece of plastic with my fly cutter, cut it the exact same size as the sound hole, and I screwed that to the bottom of my little Dremel jig. And after 20 or 30 circles around there, I ended up with a groove that exactly fit the sound hole rosette that I bought on eBay for like $6 or something. So here I'm doing a test fit. There's a gap at the end of those. You just kind of ignore that. You put it right underneath where the fretboard mounts. A little tight bond glue and glue them in place. Here it is all glued in there. You see I leave the gap toward the front or the top, I guess. I don't know how you would say it, of the instrument. And these things are made out of heather, and they're dyed and glued together. And then when they cut them all off, they come out to the right. Get the pretty color wood in there. So here's a test with the fretboard, just holding in place. Make sure it covers up nice. And there you go. And after everything's in place and the glue's dry, you go back after this with the cabinet scraper too, and it scrapes the wood down so it's flush with the top. You don't want to do any sanding here, or you'll go right through the thin layer on the top of the plywood. So I thought maybe a little decoration on the headstock would be nice. I took some maple, it's an edge strapping for putting on the edge of plywood, and I cut a little circle, or I cut the little pineapple shape out and recessed it, and got it so it would fit. And that edge binding material has a hot melt adhesive on the back. I just squished it in place with my little iron and scraped it flush, and then I put the little scallops in there by heating up a piece of steel pipe and wood burning them in. The last little detail I put in was I thought I would add a rosewood heel block, kind of like the big guitars have. So I just cut a piece kind of roughly to shape. I shaved off the bottom of the neck system so that heel block came out flush with the bottom of the uke, and sanded it so it fit. Here I'm gluing the neck in place. The neck joint fit very well. All I did do is line things up, and then I just used my old chunk of 2x6 there to put some pressure on it, and glued right in. After the neck's on, you glue the fretboard in place. You find a nice locator there, and you center it all up good. Clamp it in place. When it's done, you just cabinet scraper off the edges of the glue, and you're good. Now from here on, I'm just doing some sanding and finishing. It looks like the instrument has a finish on it. I'm just using a can of spray shellac. The trick there is it keeps the light colored wood sealed, so you don't get any bleed of the dark material into the light. And that kind of keeps things sealed up nice, so you get a nice finish. The next thing is the fretboard came with some pre-drilled holes and a set of round little mother-of-pearl type inlays. I don't think they were real mother-of-pearl, but they look pretty darn good. And put a little drop of glue in there and get things all lined up nice, and you just kind of push them down. I used a little chunk of wood dowel and shoved them down into the hole. And the only trick here is and I'm trying to show in the pictures, but there's a white side and a pearly looking side, and you have to make sure that you get the white side goes down, not up. Otherwise, when you scrape it, it will go right through. It'll look kind of funny. There, you can see it pretty good in that picture. After I got them pushed in, they were all a little bit proud, which is normal. So you tape on, just put some tape on the frets, so I wouldn't scrape them. And went back after those with the cabinet scraper and scraped them flush. They look nice and pearly when they're done too. They're pretty nice fake if they were. Our time is short. This is our fate. I'm your Here's a word of caution for anybody who might go after this kit. Be a little careful here. There was an error in the instructions. They called for the positioning of the bridge and saddle at the wrong spot. Would have given a a scale length almost an inch longer than it was supposed to be. Somehow they were measuring something from the 14th fret. The ukulele, the 12th fret is the center of the scale. So I measured from the back side of the nut to the 12th fret, and I came up with 7.5 inches. Then you double that, and so you measure again from the nut, and you come up with, it was pretty close to 15 inches, almost exact. And then glue the bridge and saddle in place or at least mark them in place on the instrument right at that spot instead. So here I kind of show you how I did. I just took my scale and bumped it up against the edge of the nut, and it shows up right, that 12th fret shows up right at 7.5 inches. So I doubled that and put the saddle at 15. Here's where it would have been. I think they called for 7 9/16. You can see it's almost an inch longer than it should have been. I masked off where the saddle's supposed to be, the bridge is supposed to be, before I put the finish on, so you have a nice bare wood surface to glue to. And I sprayed on about 6 or 8, probably about 8 coats of lacquer, sanding in between, pre-catalyzed lacquer, sanding in between coats, and that's how it came out. So. Well, open up your mind and see like me. Open up your plans and damn, you're free. Look into your heart and you'll find. I'm pretty happy with it so far. It seems to play really well. It's got a nice sound. Don't be surprised if it takes a week or more for the strings to finish their stretching. I think it was closer to 2 weeks before they would stop stretching. After I first strung the instrument, I couldn't finish a song, and it was out of tune so bad you had to stop. So they do stretch a lot at first, so be prepared for that. It's no big deal, just takes a little time, and gives you good practice tuning, I guess. Oh, 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 oh. I had some scrap pieces of plywood out in the garage, and I thought, I'm going to build a nice little stand and see if I can come up with something to set this thing on. So I put some of these scraps together and cut some plywood discs. I wrapped those discs with just a black felt, and that's what went on the little stand parts too. And you see it kind of fits in there like that. Works pretty nice. This has been Happy Camper, and thanks for watching.